I started this series of four talks saying that reality is under attack, that reality itself is under attack. Science is under attack. Human rights are under attack. Women, the rights of women, their freedom, their safety, under attack. Gaia, Mother Nature herself, is under attack. This series of talks has been a defense of reality and a celebration of the real, real. We have explored ways to align with the real, real, to ground in the real, real, to take solace and refuge in the real, real, and in turn to offer silence and refuge through the real, real. In this fourth and final talk, I'll bring it all together and yet add yet another dimension to it. And at the end, offer an opportunity to touch on the nature of that reality experientially. Vectors of Reality is the sequel to Verities of Being, a series of talks I gave in 2025. In both instances, Verities and Vectors, the title of the series came to me on its own, and in turn, the titles of the individual talks came to me all at once on their own. And in both instances, I had no sense of where it was going. I could intellectually follow the logic of the titles, but that's not where I write or speak from. But then, one by one, as I prepared each talk, the flow would start and the message would reveal itself. And I would connect one part to the next. That's how it was all the way through. And it all started with two remarkable encounters with coyotes. One in June 24 at 2 a.m. on Nob Hill, and the second in December 2024 on the same street at the same time of night. There's more to that story, but for here and now, I just want to acknowledge the imprint of the wild on this series of talks. So since in a meta sense, this is the final in a series of 8 talks, I will briefly touch on the content of the Verities talks. In Verities Part 1, shadow, the darkness, a lush, vibrant, fecund realm. Yes, there are bad neighborhoods within the shadow. But there are also art colonies and witches' covens thriving there. So much of our creativity itself arises from the darkness. So much of our sexuality, too. So much of what we experience as beauty. So much of our aesthetics. Mystery itself. Mystery itself has its nest in shadow. I call this shadow region the scintillant deep. In Verities Part 2, Cetas, I extolled 8 inborn plug-and-play hardwired CDs, which constitute an integral aspects of our primal reality. Touch, laughter, sleep, conscience, voice, creativity, sexuality, free will. Proof we are all Cetas, all beings who possess powers. In part 3, Shakta, I enumerated some of the many names and forms of Shakti, the deep feminine, not just goddesses of the Indian subcontinent, Devi, Durga, Parvati, and the others, but also goddesses of the north and south, the east and west of the world, and the dark goddesses, Kali and Hecate, and what I distinguish as the dark green goddesses, Yamoja, Pachamama, Gaia herself. I elucidated the numerous powerful, mysterious ways that Shakti pours through all and everything and is accessible everywhere and always. Prana, Chi, Fohat, Tantra, Bhakti, Baraka, the force. Proof we are all Shaktas, beings through which Shakti moves. In Verities Part 4, just as I intend to do in Part 4 of this series, at its close, I sought to bring it down and into the quintessence. Spanda equals the divine pulsation. Quoting the King James Bible, be still and know, but be still and know, turning it upside down and inside out, it's not stillness, really. It's more like hummingbird wings. Jayadeva Singh, the great theosophist and scholar of Kashmir Shaivism, writing on Spanda, said, the Supreme transcends all notions of space and time. Spanda, therefore, in the case of the Supreme, is neither physical motion nor psychological activity like pain or pleasure, nor pranic activity like hunger or thirst. It is the throb of the ecstasy of the divine consciousness, Vimarsa, the divine I consciousness, spiritual dynamism. It is the divine creative pulsation. But there's another dimension, another angle. Sound, nada, is the name given to the pulse, spanda, of the supreme level of speech, paravak, which animates the highest reality. The Netra Tantra refers to it as the form of sound that pervades the universe. That's from the Wisdom Library. Oh, I also added the first three verses of the Spanda Karika, Jayadeva Singh version, alongside the three fundamental propositions of the secret doctrine, and illustrated how they illuminate and amplify. Each illuminates and amplifies the other's message. Throughout Vectors of Reality, I have been operating within the context of four prophecies, two of which have come to pass, and two more of which we are leaning into. The two that have come to pass are the oldest of the four and the most recent of the four. In the 12th century, the great Hildegard of Bingen prophesied the planetary echo emergency we find ourselves struggling to mitigate here in the 21st century, the planetary climate emergency and the sixth great extinction. In 2010, I published Between Shadow and Night, Singularity in Search of Itself, which was later folded into Words of Power, New Language for a New Reality. In Between Shadow and Night, I declared a singularity was imminent. And in 2022, in Secret Engine of the World, I declared that it had arrived. Not an AI singularity, which of course so many are preoccupied with, but a singularity in our own collective psyche, a singularity in the course of human evolution itself. And we are in the throes of that singularity now. And we are praying hard that this black hole turns out to be a wormhole. And we come out the other side into a better version of ourselves. The two prophecies we are still working on, leaning into, holding space for, are from the 1980s and given to us by the legendary American sage, Joe Miller. In a late night conversation in his living room, on his living room couch, I challenged Joe about human evolution. I forget, it was some horrible event going on in the world at the time. It was before Darfur. It was before, I think it was before Darfur and after Tiananmen Square. So I don't think it was either one of those, but something horrible was going on at that moment in the world. And I just said, "How, Joe, human evolution? Seriously? I don't see anything happening here. Devolution of anything." This was in the 1980s. Joe just took a deep breath and said, "We just have to make it through the next 100 years. We just have to make it through the next 100 years. Because by then, enough children would be born just knowing some critical mass number, some hundredth monkey type of number, but maybe hundreds of millions. And their presence itself would finalize the great shift into the new iteration of civilization, a true new age. Now we've got maybe 55 years to go. I don't know whether or not we're going to make it, but it will happen incrementally, and it's already underway. We've already met some of these beings. We've already met some of these children. Some of them may be your children. Some of them may be you already. I know I've seen some of you. And these beings will just come in knowing. They will know things that other people had to strive a lifetime to get through to mystical perceptions, but also practical and moral understandings. They'll just come in knowing these things, and they will come in significant numbers and shift the direction of the human race. So we'll see. A few years later, speaking at a Sema, a beautiful Sufi ceremony, Joe was honored. He was the pole of the ceremony. Joe said in that public event, he said, in the future, the bright future, that women would lead. He said it would be the women who led us into that new age, and it would be the women who governed in that new age. It's all a great song, and I'll provide the links in the text version on Substack. So yes, tonight, again, as I have with each one of these talks, I say tonight, broadcasting live from inside the singularity. Part one of Vectors of Being, uh, part one, space-time. In space-time, we explored where we stand in the cosmos. Space in all its dimensions, from space-time and wormholes to the five sheaths of atmosphere that protect all life on Earth, down to this physical plane, this psychological space, mystical space, akasha, the space between thoughts, emptiness, boundaries, individuation, movement, and meditation. All aspects of space and our where we stand in it and our exploration of it. Because after all, uh, life on Earth comes from the stars, comes from space, comes out of space-time. And in part two, we're focused on the Gaian mysteries. NASA, NASA says, quote, so yeah, how shall I put it? As in creation itself, the one flows from the other. The Gaian mysteries flow from space-time. And NASA makes this observation in its ocean worlds. It says, what is the ultimate origin of water? Hydrogen. Hydrogen was created in the Big Bang and oxygen in the cores of stars more massive than the sun. The origins of our oceans are in the stars. Hydrogen was created in the Big Bang and oxygen in the cores of stars more massive than the sun. The origins of our oceans are in the stars. The Gaian mysteries, that in which we live and move and have our being, or more accurately, she in whom we live and move and have our being. And part two included Gaian politics and Gaian poetics, laying Aristotle's politics and poetics to rest. Veritas, the green flame of Hildegard of Bingen. The true nature of darkness, the moon's true identity, anthropocentric climate disruption, and the sixth great extinction, and a green, woke, feminist civilization as our destination. You'll find all of these in part two of this series of talks. There'll be links back to each one of those in this text when I publish it. Part three, the true, the good, and the beautiful. So here we stand in space-time. Our life itself, a Gaian mystery. And from within us flow this understanding, this aspiration, this recognition of the true, the good, and the beautiful, both inside ourselves, inside each other, and in Gaia's paradise, this Eden that surrounds us. What life and the world call forth from us, what we resonate with in the world and in each other, that which exalts us, the true, the good, the beautiful, that which heals on a soul level, that which nourishes us on a soul level, the true, the good, the beautiful. These are the vital organs of reality, the nectar of our humanity poured into the chalices of I am and we are. Our clarity of mind, our kindness, our sense of wonder, our sense of justice, the very taste of the exquisite. All of it. The nectar of our humanity. And included in part three were the dangerous millennia. I say millennia plural, not millennium, not the dangerous millennium, the dangerous millennium. We talked about the martyrdom of Hypatia. We talked about the martyrdom of Giordano Bruno. And we talked about the martyrdom of the great Nur Inayat Khan, fighting fascists in World War II. Well, we talked also, though, not just about the martyrs, we talked about those who lived long lives of legend. His examples, Jane Goodall and John Lewis. And we talked about what I call the holy mundane, which is the rest of us. When I talked about unforgettable conversation, walk I had with a great scholar of international affairs and a great Sufi, Dr. Abdulaziz Said, and I asked him the same question that I asked Joe about human evolution. This again back in the 80s, some mid 80s sometime. And Dr. Said said, none of us understand. None of us can possibly know the difference we make. We cannot possibly know how much worse it would be without you living the life you're living. Chopping wood, carrying water, being kind, having your eyes open, speaking out, whatever it is that is yours to do, doing it from the depth of yourself, from the most practical to the most supernatural. It's all chopping wood and carrying water. It's all the holy mundane. Holy, Wholly, and Holy, holy mundane. We have no idea how much worse it would be without you, without us. And we just keep moving in the direction that the depth of soul and the depth of heart and the clarity of mind lead us. And we talked, and I've in part three, I also talked about the 36. It's a Kabbalistic legend, and I talked in that context. I talked about the what you could call, in a very real way, the true government of the world, the true spiritual hierarchy, which the great Hazrat Naya Khan said the secret of the hierarchy is simply the expansion of the heart. Simply the expansion of the heart. That's the secret of the hierarchy. Not robes, not titles, not organizations, not degrees, not recognition, not followers, none of this, none of this, none of this, none of this. The expansion of the heart. So the greater your love for all and everything, and the greater the ferocity of your commitment to protecting that which you love, that much higher you are in the true hierarchy of mystical being, the deeper you are in the true mystical hierarchy. And even the hierarchy is an old word anyway, because it's a circle and it's a web. It's not a thing you climb up. It's not ranking. It's just the expansion of the heart. It's just love. So I told a couple of my friends, we moved toward this part four. I said, there's a twist to part four, but I can't tell you what it is. We just have to experience it in a moment. So this is where that twist occurs. The the three realms of the real. So we talked about the lowercase r, and we talked about the uppercase r. And I'll just we'll just stay on them for a few moments. So there it was sometime, I don't know, in the last 20 years sometime. I'll have to look it up, but maybe it was 30 years ago, but I don't think so. I think it was maybe about 20 years ago. I saw a documentary uh, which talked about how the Dalai Lama had said it was time to hear from some of those powerful lamas on long life retreats in remote caves deep in the Himalayas. And I remember this one interview I heard. They had cut this lama's hair and clipped his nails. His eyes had to adjust to light. He had spent most of his life in a cave in the Himalayas, meditating on the future of the human race, essentially. And he was asked about the nature of reality, and he said, "I wish I could explain it to you, but I can't. You think you're sitting here You think you're sitting there and I am sitting here and we are having a conversation. You think you are sitting there and I am sitting here and we are having a conversation. The reality of what is happening is so very different. It can't be put into words. So sitting there in the lowercase real reality, he was speaking to another who was sitting there in the lowercase r real reality. And he was communicating something which cannot be communicated. He was expressing something that cannot be expressed. He was putting into words something that cannot be put into words about the uppercase R real reality. And it was all happening in the same space. The lowercase r reality and the uppercase R reality occupy the same space. That is the real, real. But what is this M that's here? What is this M? Well, it's a kappa, it's uppercase M. What does it stand for? It's larger, its font size larger than the lowercase r, but not as large as the uppercase R. What is this M? I'll hold that for a moment. I'm going to leave that question poignantly in the air for a moment and just return to the that Lama and what he was saying about what cannot be said. And I just want to point out that it is really he was what he was declaring is the same as what H.P. Blavatsky was articulating in the first of the three fundamental propositions of the secret doctrine. An omnipresent, eternal, boundless, immutable principle on which all speculation is impossible, since it transcends the power of human conception and could only be dwarfed by any human expression as similitude. It is beyond the range and reach of thought, and in the words of the Manduka, unthinkable and unspeakable. And that is why we need this M. Okay, so the M stands for myth, for myth. Myth is a container. A myth is a container for the inexpressible, for the beyond words. But it's not a hermetically sealed container. It's more like a wineskin or a Boda bag. You can drink from myth, life-saving water, soul-nourishing wine. Myth carries, myth pours forth. Myth is an intermediary in the relationship between the lowercase r and the uppercase r. And yes, myth can be polluted, poisoned, warped, hijacked to serve the ends of the pathologically ill. But that's a different conversation or a different time, a different venue. We're talking about myth in its natural, healthy functioning as one of the three realms of the real. The Amazon Prime series, Rings of Power, takes place during the Second Age of Middle-earth, thousands of years before the events chronicled in The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. Galadriel, pictured here, was young. She was only 5,000 years old at the time. She was only 5,000 years old, 2,000 years before the events of The Lord of the Rings. That's by Tolkien's timeline. If you want to go by the filmmaker Peter Jackson's timeline, it's a little more compressed. She would have been 2,000 years old by Peter Jackson's condensed timeline. Anyway, in this screenshot, she's seen with the Queen Regent of Numenor. The object she is holding her hand over is a palantir. The palantiri were made by the Noldor on Valor in the First Age. Perfectly spherical, blemishless, indestructible, composed of a crystalline substance that captured and stored starlight. When dormant, black as the void, deep elven magic. Gazing into a palantir, you could see faraway events. You could send your thoughts from one palantir to another. It is said there were only 8 made. They were not evil objects, of course. This was elven magic, but very dangerous, so powerful, and all connected. Now, in the Third Age, one of these palantir fell into the hands of Sauron, the evil one, the heir of the evil one, who had himself become the evil one. And with it, he corrupted both Saruman the White, the head of the wizards, of the handful of wizards that came to Earth to serve and protect humanity. He corrupted the mind of Saruman the White, and he corrupted the mind of Denethor, steward of Gondor, by bending their minds to his will through the Palantir. Rings of Power and Lord of the Rings tell the story of a struggle against anti-nature, ecocide, genocide, a struggle that stretches over many thousands of years, a struggle in which seemingly total victory was undermined and overcome and had to be won again. We who gather in this circle, in person and online, understand such stories now. And those reading this or viewing this recording later will hopefully understand such stories too. This is the indomitable Moraine, Aes Sedai, standing before one of the portal stones. Wheel of Time, based on Robert Jordan's series of 14 books. Central to the narrative of this mythos is the pattern. Think of it as an equivalent to the Tao. The Wheel of Time is the engine of the pattern. It has 7 spokes. Each spoke is an era of evolution, and all beings move from one spoke to the next. Incarnation after incarnation, evolving as this eternal return cycles through again and again. Aha. This is the second proposition, second fundamental proposition of the secret doctrine as articulated by Madame Blavatsky. The eternity of the universe in toto as a boundless plane, periodically the playground of numerous universes, incessantly manifesting and disappearing, called the manifesting stars and the sparks of humanity. The eternity of the pilgrim is like the wink of an eye of self-existence. The appearance and disappearance of worlds is like a regular tidal ebb, flow, and reflux. The Aes Sedai it was a matriarchal order of sorceresses. Think of it as something like the Bene Gesserit in the Dune mythos. The Aes Sedai was organized into 7 Ajas. Moraine was of the Blue Aja. Think of it as the Aes Sedai's CIA. The Blue Aja had its own vast espionage venture, its own vast espionage network. Moraine was both a master spy and a spy master. The Aes Sedai watched and guarded the evolution of humanity. They protected the pattern and the wheel. The portal stones were entry points to an interdimensional transit system offering access to the mirror worlds, what they call the worlds that might have been, or what we would call the multiverse. Instant transit. These portal stones were established in the First Age, and by the Third Age, the period in which the storyline takes place, the occult knowledge of how to navigate them was all but lost. They were therefore very dangerous to use. And of course, there was a powerful supernatural being, a powerful, pathologically ill supernatural being who wanted to break the wheel and destroy the pattern. And of course, this pathologically ill supernatural being had acolytes and allies, the dark friends, they were called, the spawn, the shadow spawn. Principal among them were the Forsaken, 13 fallen sorcerers and sorceresses from the Second Age. They are referred to as those chosen to rule the world forever. Sworn to the evil one, the Forsaken had been granted access to what he called the true power, a perversion of the one power. They are rewarded with immortality, great power and immortality. The evil one and his Forsaken were defeated at the end of the Second Age and imprisoned behind seven seals. That was maybe 3,500 years before the events chronicled in the Wheel of Time. By the period of time the Amazon Prime series covers, those seven seals had started to weaken, and the Forsaken had begun to slip back into the world. The Wheel of Time tells the story of a struggle against anti-nature, ecocide, femicide, genocide, a struggle that stretches over many thousands of years, a struggle in which seemingly total victory was undermined and overcome and had to be won again. We here in this circle understand such stories now. And those down the road who read this and view this recording, I hope they too will understand such stories, hopefully from a different perspective. In the far future, most of the galaxy is despotically ruled by a triumvirate of leaders collectively known as Empire. That's the opening of the Wikipedia plot synopsis for Foundation. This is the Lady Demerzel, an 18,000-year-old humanoid robot, the last of her kind, seemingly the major domo and sex slave of the genetic dynasty of triadic clone emperors. But she is the real power behind the imperial throne, guiding humanity on a millennial scale. And in this image, she's holding the Prime Radiant. The prime radiant has four-dimensional space inside of it. Four-dimensional, the prime radiant is a four-dimensional space inside a three-dimensional object. So yes, it can be in more than one place at one time. Created by the mathematician and psychology professor Harry Seldon and his genius life partner Yellen. The prime radiant stores all of Seldon's psychohistory. For example, its galactic mapping tools, processes, equations, along with a copy of Seldon's consciousness itself. There are only two copies. One is in the possession of the brilliant young Gail Dornick, destined to carry on the work of Harry Seldon. The other had been kept in Seldon's vault, but was given to the Lady Demerzel by Seldon's avatar, so that she may use it to guarantee humanity's survival. They had discovered that seemingly she was dedicated to the survival of the triadic clone dynasty, but actually she had been programmed deeper than that to guarantee humanity's survival. So he put a prime radiant in her hands. You shall have a foundation, Harry Seldon declared, that will serve as a beacon of hope for future generations. You can take the pain and the what ifs, he said, and you weave them into a narrative that propels you forward. Based on Isaac Asimov's epic Foundation trilogy. The Apple Plus adaptation premiered in 2024. Fourth season is scheduled 2027. Premiered in 2021. I'm sorry. And the fourth season is scheduled in early 2027. Math is never just numbers, Gail Dornan explained. When words fail us, we use math to describe the inexpressible, the things that terrify us most, the vastness of space, the shape of time, the weight and worth of a human soul. I've included a link to a YouTube video, Isaac Asimov's Foundation Explained in 5 minutes. It's it's very well done, and you'll find that link in the Substack text. And but I also encourage you to watch the Apple Plus series of Foundation, and also the Prime Amazon Prime series of Wheels of Time and Rings of Power. This is Lyra Balakwa, or as the king of the polar bears on Svalbard would say, Lyra Balakwa. Her story is told in Philip Pullman's His Dark Materials trilogy, and in a New Line Cinema film version, The Golden Compass, and in a BBC HBO streaming series, His Dark Materials. His Dark Materials is set in a multi-world reality, with the action moving from one world to another. Lyra's world is in one in which all human souls manifest as animal companions called daemons. So you'd be walking down the street and your daemon, your animal soul, would be moving along with you. Be sitting in a room, your daemon would be with you. Lyra was a young girl living among the scholars at Oxford. It was said she was an orphan, but she wasn't. The identity of her parents was a secret. There was another secret about this young girl, the witch's prophecy. Quote, the witches hear the immortal whispers of those who pass between the worlds. They speak of a child who is destined to bring the end of destiny. If told what she must do, she will fail, but she won't walk alone. There is a boy whose fate is bound with hers. Together they will change everything. The witches called her the second Eve. Of course, like HPB, the witches understood the true meaning of the Garden of Eden. Here, Lyra is holding the alethiometer. That's a word made up of the Greek words for truth, Greek words for truth and measure. The alethiometer had 36 symbols, 4 arrows, and 3 dials on the side. Using the 3 dials, you pointed the 3 shorter arrows to symbols which lined up around the circumference of the alethiometer, and you somehow you pick symbols that somehow express something about the shape, all taken together, that kind of shape your question. And then the fourth arrow, the longer one, will of its own volition point to another symbol that somehow expresses the answer to your question. Now, the aptitude to engage with the alethiometer was long lost in Lyra's world, but mysteriously, Lyra was adept at using it as an oracle, naturally and effortlessly. Will Parry, the boy from another world who became her companion, also had come into possession of a powerful occult artifact, the subtle knife, a double-edged blade. One edge slices through the veils between universes, allowing its possessor to traverse the multiverse, and the other edge could cut through any material substance. They were hunted, of course. In Lyra's world, humanity languished under an authoritarian regime, theocratic, patriarchal, oligarchic, suppressing the scientific research into magical interdimensional phenomena of dust, snatching children for insane Nazi-like experimentation, mutilating them, severing them from their daemons, separating them from their souls with lasers as if sawing off the wings of angels. We in this circle understand stories. What stories such as Rings of Power, Wheel of Time, Foundation, and His Dark Materials are opening our eyes to, preparing, empowering. And for those who read this or watch this in the future, hopefully they too will recognize this moment. The Black Widow, Natasha Romanoff, started in essence as a child soldier. Taken as an infant, raised in the KGB's Red Room Project, brainwashed, genetically altered, sterilized, false memories implanted, trained in the martial arts and in espionage as a KGB spy and assassin. She defected to SHIELD to work with the indomitable Nick Fury. She said her ledger had too much red on it, too much blood. She said she had to clear her ledger. Her feats of daring are threaded through all of the Marvel universe, Iron Man, Avengers, Captain America, Captain Marvel. Marvel, here, this is from the Marvel Cinematic Universe wiki. This spoiler alert. The sacrifice of Natasha Romanoff was the ultimate step that was required in order for the Avengers to obtain the Soul Stone. When Red Skull informed Black Widow and Hawkeye that they must sacrifice something that they love, the two fought over which would be the one to die, each wanting themselves to be the one, resulting in Romanoff tricking Barton and then sacrificing herself. Now that is hero's journey. In my 30s, I slept with the radio on it. It helped me deal with my PTSD. This was in that last decade before my dark nights of the soul. Yes, I say dark nights, plural. I laugh whenever someone says dark night of the soul, singular, as if there's just one. Anyway, I slept with the radio on, tuned into either all classical or all jazz. I've written about this in Dragon. 4 different pieces of music woke me up in the middle of the night. So beautiful, so exquisite, so holy. I had to stay awake until the announcer named the pieces after it would play. And even if I had to lay awake through the rest of a long set, I would wait so I got the name of that particular piece of music. This happened 4 times over a span of a few years. And these 4 unrelated pieces of music were foundational for me on my journey. This particular night, it was Parsifal. It turned out to be Parsifal, the prelude to Wagner's Parsifal. I had done a deep dive into the Arthurian legend. I'd already done a deep dive into the Arthurian legend, which I've touched on in Secret Engine. I had my own Percival in my psyche, an amalgam of bits and pieces that resonated with me from various versions, the French, the English. Uh, Wagner's version is Germanic, it's different, of course, but it was a very important story for me. I just never heard Wagner's Parsifal. Well, for years after I heard it, as the darkness deepened all around me, I would drive my car day and night with the prelude on repeat, weeping, not from joy, not from sorrow, but from something transcendent and immanent at once, something like the joy within sorrow and the sorrow within joy, commingled. Parsifal was kept captive in his childhood by his mad woman mother. She isolated him in the forest with no human contact from an early age, uneducated, in rags, deprived. And those who encountered him in the deep forest thought him a fool. Then one day he heard horse hooves and the clanging of metal, and he followed it, and he came upon some of Arthur's men, knights of the Round Table, and he thought they must be gods. And they had pity on him and brought him with them to Camelot, rescued him. Now there was a woman who just sat in the shadow in one of the corners of Arthur's great hall, weeping. Paroxysms of weeping, some inexplicable grief, ceaselessly weeping day and night. She had been cursed, and not even Merlin could free her. But when Parsifal walked in that first time, and the woman laid eyes on that ragged holy fool, she started laughing, rolling laughter, and for real, with an inexplicable, irrational joy for hours until she fell into a deep peace. And the curse had been mysteriously broken, and she was healed. Arthur's knights trained Parsifal in their ways, and he soon became one of Arthur's most powerful champions. 150 knights went on the quest for the Holy Grail. But depending upon which version you come across, Parsifal was only one of three or two, or indeed the only one to overcome the many dangers, the many hardships, the many supernatural trials and tribulations thrown at them. And it was Parsifal who brought back the Grail, brought it back to Camelot to redeem and renew the leader and the land. Well, the tales of Natasha Romanoff and Parsifal emerged from mythos. They are tales of the hero's journey. And I argue the hero's journey is enshrined without naming it that in the third fundamental proposition of the secret doctrine. Fundamental identity of all souls with the universal one soul, the latter being itself an aspect of the unknown root and the obligatory pilgrimage for every soul, a spark of the former, through the cycle of incarnation and necessity, in accordance with cyclic and karmic law during the whole term. Each person must make this journey for themselves. One way or another, each of us has our own hero's journey to experience, one way or another. To the world, it might even seem like a life of quiet desperation, but it is nevertheless the hero's journey. That is, if it leaves you open and connected and serving the all and everything in some way, some real way, whether known or unknown in the world. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. There's no choice between the hero's journey and some other path. It's an integral part of the pathless path itself, the natural, true, organic path of our souls through space-time and the Gaian mysteries and to a greater understanding of who and what we are and what the space-time and the Gaian mysteries are in all their glory. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. And there are those who will try, probably their own cowardice speaking. Here in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see uh, a marvelous piece from the great theosophist and Swedish painter Hilma af Klint. Turns out she did a Parsifal series, 144 watercolors in 1916. That one spoke to me powerfully. So, myth has carried our mysteries from the painted walls of prehistoric caves to the streaming platforms of the 21st century. Every one of the four powerful mythoi touched on in this talk, there are two operating principles, two defining elements, the individual and the collective, the hero's journey and that which the collective spirit of that which I keep hearing when I try to put words around it. I just keep hearing a song from the early 1800s. Viva la company. Viva l'amor, viva l'amor, viva l'amor, viva l'amor, viva la company. Viva l'amor, viva l'amor, viva l'amor, viva l'amor, viva la company. Viva la company meaning long live the company. Traditional, as I said, French drinking and marching song. Um, and during World War II, it was widely adapted and sung by the Allied troops. And it was particularly popular among the French resistance fighters and American soldiers. And it had become a morale boosting and campfire and marching tune. I just hear it when I ponder the fact that power is both individual and collective. There's both the hero's journey and this esprit, esprit de corps, really, the collective sense of the viva la company, viva love. Yes to love. Yes to our company and the service and protection of love. In the upper right-hand corner of uh, this slide, I have put this cave painting from 68,000 years ago. It's the oldest cave painting found so far. These hands in Indonesia. I've seen the same hands in caves in Australia, and they had a powerful impact on me. And in the lower left-hand corner, you see hands from a cave in Argentina, a cave in Patagonia from 9,000 years ago. There's 2,000 hands on those caves, etched on those caves. And in the upper left-hand corner, you see the handprints of Albert Einstein, taken in Berlin in 1930. He gave them to a chiromancer, and she was perhaps the leading palm reader in Germany between the two world wars. And she wrote about his hands in her book of palm analysis. And in the lower right-hand corner, you see the fingerprints of Dr. Martin Luther King from the fingerprint card on his arrest in June 1964, civil rights action in uh, in Florida. And this is This was published in the St. Augustine record. These hands reaching out from across millennia, open hands, reaching and touching. I was in a shop and the person wrapping up the pieces I was taking back. She said, no one knows why, no one knows what those hand paintings, what they meant. I smiled, but walked away with it. Seriously? Seriously, is it? Is it so hard to understand what's being communicated to us now from those hand paintings from tens of thousands of years ago? And what it has in common with the handprint of Einstein and the fingerprints of Martin Luther King, both of whom were involved in advancing the journey of the human race and the celebration of the life of this planet. Vive l'amour, vive l'amour, vive la compagnie. Everyone and everything everywhere is consequential, significant, profoundly so, in ways we cannot calculate or comprehend. Evolutionary power, conscious evolutionary power is both individual and collective. Neither can succeed in saving a world without the other. Individual and collective is not an either or. It is more a both or neither. Lyra Belacqua did not stand alone against the mysterium, although she would have. She was not alone, and I don't just mean her bow with its dimension splicing knife. I mean the witches joined with them, and the Egyptians joined with them, and the polar bears of Svalbard joined with them. The hero's journey serves the collective. The individual serves the collective. And inversely, the collective, in its healthiest state, protects and nurtures the individual. Power is individual and collective, wheels within wheels. Each provides the energy for the other. Now, you and I and all we love could be seen as confronted with an apocalyptic move to impose an oligarchic, patriarchal, ecocidal, femicidal dominion. We could be seen as in a struggle of the same order and magnitude as those of Galadriel and Moraine and Gail Dornack and Lyra Balakwa, the, the struggles that they found themselves engaged in. Of course, in lowercase r reality, none of us have access to a palantir, to the palantiri or the portal stones. None of us are in possession of a prime radiant or an alethiometer or a subtle knife. These mystical artifacts are symbols, objectifications, placeholders of a sort for mystical powers inherent in the nature of uppercase R reality. Therefore, it is also true that here and now and then, at critical junctures, pivotal moments, instances of the direst need for the species itself, all of us, or some of us at least, do indeed have access to the interior of the reality itself and can draw on these powers symbolized by the palantiri, the portal stones, the prime radiant, the alethiometer, the subtle knife, and it is all within us, all pervading Gaia. Yes, myth is a container, not a hermetically concealed container, more like a wineskin or one of those Spanish Bota bags we drink from for hydration of the five bodies and nourishment of the soul. Myth has carried our mysteries from the painted walls of prehistoric caves to the streaming platforms of the 21st century. Gone back and forth between these two slides because they are integral to each other. That's why a song forced its way into uh, power as both individual and collective. The nature of reality, all the verities, the shadow, the siddhis, shakti, spanda, all of it, and all of the vectors, the Gaian mysteries, the true, the good, the beautiful, space-time itself, all of it pours forth from the uppercase R reality, and all of it empties back into the uppercase R reality. Everyone, everything, everywhere arises and is sustained and absorbed utterly and completely within the uppercase R reality, and arguably sound is the surest verity of all and the most direct vector of all. You can make a case for breath, a convincing case, but your grief or anger or confusion can sometimes be too dense, too tight, too heavy to travel inward or expand outward on the breath. But sound, even and especially a simple single syllable, ah, or ooh, can free you, can nourish you, can get you back into a state within which you can breathe deeply, fully, directionally. Breath exhaled with ha, inhaled with sa. The Ham Sa mantra, a japa japa, a mantra being recited automatically on the breath itself, naturally throughout the day and night, sounded in silence in the breath naturally. The ha, sa. Mm. The M between is less a letter or a symbol, a letter or a syllable. It's more of just a curve in the breath, a curve in the sound, seemingly a silent micro moment in between a curve up or a curve down, not a pause. 21,600 times per day and night, to be exact-ish, says Jayadeva Singh in the Shiva Sutras. 21,600 opportunities to take that vector into the reality, to breathe out and in. Ha, sa. Exhaling the ha, inhaling the sa. Ha, sa, ha, sa, ha, sa. I am that I am. Hamza, I am that I am. I whispered, ha, sa, ha, sa, ha, sa. Now in the silence, feel the ha, hear the ha in the form of the exhalation itself. Feel and hear the sa in the form of the inhalation itself. Ha on the exhalation. Sa on the inhalation. Feel it and hear it in the silence. Gentle indrawn breath can be into your belly. It can be into your heart. I don't care which. Whichever's simpler, easier for you to breathe into in this moment. Feels more comfortable. Breathing into the belly, out of the belly, breathing into the heart, out of the heart. Ha on the exhale, and sa on the inhale. And it doesn't even matter if you switch them around. And remember the M in between, which isn't really even sounded. It's just like the curve and the silence between the inhalation and the exhalation, and a curve in a micro moment of silence between the ha and the sa. Each of us is an expression of being, each unique fingerprints, yet related, DNA. The verities, our shadow, our siddhas, laughter, touch, creativity, the mysteries of sleep, all of it shaktified, all of it pulsating, spanda itself, now as each individual expression of being and those it is in direct relationship with in some way or another. Well, they don't construct a reality. One takes shape around us based on countless factors, great and small, time and place, age, seasons, nationalities, naming, facts. It all aggregates. This is lowercase r reality. But because each individual expression of being itself, herself, Shiva slash Shakti, you can't say Shiva or Shakti without the other and be naming it in its fullness. So I say Shiva slash Shakti. Each individual being and the naturally, organically forming collectives of these unique beings, they also utterly a part of the being itself, that being itself, herself, Siva slash Shakti. The portal is always open between the two realms of lowercase reality and uppercase reality. And that is how our soul qualities, our soul attributes, our goodness, our truth, our beauty, it is how they move back and forth from reality to reality and from reality to reality. And myth is one of the ways, not the only way, but one of the ways, the most powerful, tried and true, and with us from the beginning ways that these soul qualities, these soul attributes are held, protected, kept secret and safe when necessary. So that it's all there. It's all there in the verities of being and the vectors of reality. Clear light, source of light that lighteth every one of humankind that cometh into the world. It is the radiance of cosmic consciousness. Yogans realize it while still in the fleshly body, and all humans glimpse it at the moment of death. It is the light of the Buddha, the Christ, and all masters of life. And to the devotee in whom it shines unimpededly, it is the Guru and the deliverer. Roshana, indigo blue of the midnight sky, all-pervading voidness, some mantra Bhadra personified. In Varoshana, the Adi Buddha, the primordial, unborn, unshaped, unmodified, Dharma Kaya Om. By the confidence of the golden sun of the great East, may the lotus garden of the Rigdon's wisdom bloom. May the dark ignorance of sentient beings be dispelled. May all beings enjoy profound, brilliant glory. Viva l'amor, viva l'amor, viva la